Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the American Academy of Emergency Medicine Women in Emergency Medicine section, virtual mentoring session for osteopathic medical students. My name is Katie. I am a second-year osteopathic medical student, and I will be moderating tonight's session. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. So this is just a pretty casual session. It will be recorded and uploaded to the AAEM Women in EM section's website within 24 hours. And the session is pretty relaxed and interactive. So feel free if you want to change your name to what year you are in school or where you are. And then if you want to put your name in the chat, what city, area of the world you're from, and what your favorite candy is. And we will get started. I'm going to start by introducing our panelists. So Zoe Cole is actually in a trauma activation. We have the privilege of having some mainly third years, I believe. And so that's the life of rotation. Some unexpected things happen, but if she comes on, I'll let her introduce herself a bit and she can chat with us. Okay, Jordan, I might pronounce your last name wrong. Jordan, Kelser,
yes, you're got
it. Great. She's a third-year medical student training in Brooklyn, currently on a surgery rotation. She's part of the wellness committee and a member of Women in EM section leadership pipeline in AAEM. Her favorite hobbies outside of medicine are being active and baking, trying out new recipes. We also have Louisa Weindruck, who is currently a third-year medical student in Fort Worth on family medicine rotation. She's involved in her school's EMIG ultrasound program, and she holds leadership positions with TSET Medical Student Committee and ACOAP Student Board. She enjoys riding her spin bike, watching true crime, and making charcuterie boards for friends. I personally, on a random note, will say that I've gotten really into my favorite murder recently, and every time a new podcast comes out, I'm on it listening to it. So, okay, welcome. So I have a few questions that are pre-submitted to ask in advance, but feel free if you have any questions, put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Like I said, it is really casual. So I'm just going to start off by asking y'all what you did, how long you had kind of a summer between first and second year. As many of y'all know, this is kind of traditionally your last summer, because then you take step one summer after your second year, and then you're basically on rotations for the rest of your life until halfway through fourth year. So what did y'all do? Do you have any regrets, things you wish you would have done instead? I'll leave it. Luisa's the first one, or Lulu is the first one on my screen, so you can chat first.
Sure. So I guess the main thing that I did for the first part of my summer that isn't very fun, but I actually had surgery. I had a knee injury at the very beginning of my first year, and I knew that was going to be my only good chunk of time to be able to have surgery. So that was one of the big things I did, is recover from surgery. That being said, COVID had also just hit. I was on crutches, so I needed things that I could do virtually. So I was involved in a program at my school called the Pediatric Research Program, where I worked with a pediatric emergency medicine doctor, reviewing some cases and kind of analyzing a case about a pediatric multi-trauma. And I also did some work with the organizations I'm involved with, my school's EMIG, and also our ultrasound program, all of which conveniently were able to be virtual.
Awesome. Jordan?
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying that I'm an SGU student. So with that being said, SGU has two different start dates. So there's January, and then there's the traditional August start date. With the January start date, you graduate and kind of do everything with the August class, but with the start of being in January, it kind of gives you more time to study for step one. So that was kind of why I decided to go with the January start date. Because I started in January, my summer break was a lot longer than I think other people get. Like mine was a little over 2 months long. So I definitely had a good chunk of time off. And what I did was our school offers selectives, and I don't think it's common for every school. I'm not too sure. But our selectives were at the time, it was pre-COVID. So luckily we were still able to travel. We were able to go international. So I actually chose one in Thailand, and it was for 2 weeks, and we learned meditation and massage, and it was supposed to be kind of like a natural way to kind of help heal. And it's also supposed to be good for the elderly to help with like their balance and hopefully prevent hip fractures from falls and stuff. So we kind of learned the importance of all that stuff. So I was luckily able to travel and do stuff like that, and we get credit towards graduation for doing these selectives. There were also a couple others that were offered. Like there was one in India where you could go into a hospital for a week, or actually no, it was 2 weeks, and you got to rotate like in the OR. You got to go through OB, like different kind of like your course, like you would go through in second and third year actually. So I did that for the first 2 weeks, and then the rest of summer I kind of spent just relaxing because I knew it was going to probably be the last free amount of time I had. So I did that and kind of went like a mini vacation and everything. But the one thing I wish I did do was kind of do a little bit more review of the material, because our school, I think, does a little bit different than everyone else. Our first year is kind of like the anatomy and physiology and kind of learning like the normal stuff of I can't talk tonight, systems. And then the second year is going through like microbiology, pharmacology, pathology, stuff like that, and kind of learning like the abnormals. So our first term was cardiology and kind of like your more difficult topics. So I kind of wish I did a little bit more review on that stuff, but that was what I did for the summer. And I definitely highly recommend doing selectives if you guys have them offered, if they're online, any type of virtual thing that you can do.
Yeah, so it sounds like both of you did or pursued opportunities that were within your school. And I think that's a great way. Do you have any recommendations if people are interested or do go to a school that maybe doesn't traditionally have a lot of opportunities, either in research or just things to do over the summer?
So I think a good place to start is asking the older students what they did. That's something that I did and got a lot of good feedback about the research program that I ended up applying to. So that was kind of what led me in one direction. Another thing, if your school has, research programs, I always tell students to Katie, I love your cat. I love Buddy. I always tell students to pay attention to the random mass emails that you get sent out. Like, I feel like so much people miss announcements about programs and grants and things like that. Like, pay attention to the emails. And lastly, I think the biggest thing is just like, if there's a faculty member who does anything that you're even remotely interested in, go and chat with them, show that you're interested, show up to the presentations or like club meetings and things like that, because that's another really great way to find things. Like, even if it's not a school sponsored like formal program, you can get involved in tons of things just by like chatting with the faculty and finding out like if they have anything that they need help with.
I definitely agree with that too. I think I survived by talking to like the older students and people who have been through more. And then also too, like you can even just look locally and try to get in some volunteer hours, because that always looks great. Or if you have like a local hospital that you have some type of connection with. Like I was a scribe before starting med school, so I knew a lot of the doctors from the hospital that was in my hometown. So they were even saying if I wanted to come in and kind of like observe as a student, since I wasn't technically allowed to do anything yet, I could do stuff like that. If places are willing to hire you as a scribe for a few months or something, or if you were previously a scribe and you could go back for a little bit more experience, now you can kind of tie a little bit together now that you have like some background knowledge. And then also if you join any EM interest groups, I think you can kind of look into that and start getting involved in the groups and seeing what they have to offer and go from there.
I will say, Lulu, what you mentioned about reaching out to faculty, I kind of the spring of first year, I had no idea what I was going to do. Probably not until like March or April until I actually had a plan. And I cold emailed a lot of people. Like I know our school has kind of like a repository directory of like all of the faculty, even if they're on multiple like this is just their part-time job or they have like some small research project associated with the university, their info will be on there. So I just went through that and I was like, oh, this person seems interesting. Like, oh, they have a potential project, and things that were active too. I think that oftentimes you find faculty or other students that are really interested in pursuing something, but it's hard to get something off the ground. It's much easier to kind of hop into a project that like is just starting, especially if you have to go through IRB approval. I know that Lulu and I can tell you a lot about what a hassle that is. I'm sure, Jordan, if you've been through it through your school or previous universities, it just takes forever. So like, don't expect that after one summer, you're going to have a publication or even a poster.
Yeah, just kind of to touch on that, I just want to tell kind of the story of how I got involved in most of the research, and most of what is on my resume actually started that summer. I was going to these virtual ultrasound lectures with our ultrasound faculty members, and I was pretty much just like looking for any way to help outside of the lectures that we were attending, because I was at home recovering from surgery. So I was like, I'll help schedule some stuff, like I'll help send out emails, I'll help do this stuff. And I just volunteered to just help out with general kind of like admin tasks, and it turned into me building a relationship with this professor who's now been my PI on all of my research projects. So you never know, like, even, you know, you don't have to be looking for some like huge, like NIH funding, like huge research project. Even just staying busy and connecting with your professors can turn into something meaningful.
So speaking of research, I know that typically, if any of y'all were in, Alika had a mentoring session through ACOAP earlier in this weekend. She had a wonderful presentation that hopefully she'll post online. But long story short, typically, if you're looking to go into emergency medicine, you don't need to have practically any research. I think the average is really low. It's like maybe 3 or 4 research positions on your ERAS for like the average applicant, or the average DO specifically applicant that applies and matches to EM. Jordan, were you involved in any research, or how did you approach that?
So I actually was not involved in any research. In school, we were cut short because of COVID. And I know like a lot of US schools got to go back to campus at some point, but because I was out of the country, it was like the very beginning of my second year, they sent us home. So everything became virtual, and it was really hard to like get, because our school is huge, I'm sure, as most people have heard. So it's kind of hard to kind of get that all coordinated, but they did have opportunities on campus that I was hoping to get involved in. But being in third year right now, I still haven't done research, but like I have done a case report when I was during my IM rotation on a patient that we did see, and hopefully it's going to turn into a poster presentation. So I don't have any experience with research, at least during medical school, but I do know that like if I was on campus, it probably would have been a different story.
I can kind of talk about, oh, sorry, Katie, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was just going to touch upon, you know, just say I was involved in research kind of as I just said, but I, to clarify, was involved in some projects starting kind of the summer after summer after first year, going into second year, and they just kind of picked up longitudinally. So my research isn't bench work, it's ultrasound, kind of like medical education research about ultrasound and teaching ultrasound and integrating it into curriculums. And all of that was through this one PI who I got involved with this summer between first and second year.
I was just going to say also that I think there pros and cons to being in a COVID world. But I think that many of the opportunities you will still find this summer are probably virtual. So take that as you may. You might not have as many opportunities to go into a hospital or do research if that's something that you choose to do. But I think that it would potentially allow you other opportunities that you might not have been able to pursue. So I guess leading into our next section. So I know Lulu, you're involved in ACOAP. Jordan, you're involved in AAEM. When did you start getting involved with national organizations? Have you gone to any conferences? What does that look like as people are maybe starting to be interested in emergency medicine and wanting to pursue, maybe positions at the national level?
So our school has like a bunch of different clubs that we can join. There's like Women in Medicine, there's an emergency medicine club as well too. And we have fairs at the beginning of our term that kind of go through like what each club is. So I joined the EMC Emergency Medicine Club my first term. And at the meetings, they're always saying like, there's a bunch of EM groups you can join. There's ASAP, EMRA, AAEM, and, like in CORD, like there's a bunch that you could, choose from. And they said, you'll kind of find out which one you're going to become more involved in. And so it was my first term. So my school is divided up into terms. So term 1 and 2 is like my first year. So in the first half of my first year was when I joined both AAEM and then EMRA. And then I found myself doing more with AAEM. So I didn't renew my membership for the other club, and I did become involved here. As for actually joining like a committee, like I had joined Women in Emergency Medicine, but didn't really have any like leadership roles or anything. But I think it was more second year when I started realizing like, okay, you can join all the clubs you want, but like until you start, making yourself known and putting yourself out there and maybe getting a leadership role, that it's really going to count. So I kind of realized it later in the game, but I would recommend doing it in your first year and just getting involved and doing what you can, even if it's not a leadership role, but if you're part of a committee and you can have say and stuff. I haven't been to any of the conferences yet, but I am going to go to the one in April in Baltimore. I signed up for the critical care and anesthesia course. One of my friends is actually running it from my school, so I'm super excited. But it'll be my first one. I figure it'd be good for networking, for residencies, and since this is the year for applying, so I'm excited.
So I kind of had somewhat of a similar story. I got involved in my EM interest group, my school's EMIG, my first year, and was heavily involved in that. My second year, I was president of our EM interest group. And so part of our roles as president was kind of responding to the national organizations that we kind of fell under. And the two biggest ones were ACOEP, so the American College of Osteopathic Emergency Physicians, and then TCEP and ASAP. ASAP is the American College of Emergency Physicians, and then they have local groups. And so being in Fort Worth, our like local group is the Texas College of Emergency Physicians. So I was president my second year, and then going into third year, I knew I wanted to stay in some sort of leadership role. And so because I had like graduated out of EMIG, my EMIG position, I wanted to get involved at a national level. So one of my mentors, who's a fourth year, was involved in both of those. And I kind of inadvertently followed her and became the project coordinator for TCEP, the TCEP Medical Student Board. And that's been really fun, just getting to work with local students in Texas. And we planned a virtual conference, and working, through the state has been pretty fun. And more recently, I got more involved with ACOEP. I am their GME coordinator, so I'm going to be helping plan GME events for their conference in the fall. So I would say I got more involved at a national level come third year, because the kind of trend at my school is that you typically aren't as involved in on-campus stuff. And so it was easy for me to transition to more national organizations. In terms of conferences, I've been to a handful of virtual ones, but I think my first in-person one will hopefully be ACOEP's spring seminar, which is going to be in Fort Lauderdale in April. And then I'm also planning on attending TCEP's big conference, which is in my hometown of Fort Worth, in April as well. So fingers crossed also for ASAP and some of the other big ones in the fall. But yeah, being involved on a national and local level is fun.
So this was actually a question that I had because I started getting involved with AAEM kind of this summer after my first year. And y'all are mentioning all of these different EM organizations. Like, what's the difference between all of them? Like, I know there's, a DO one, and what are some of the advantages to being even just a member or potentially in a committee for a national org besides, leadership?
So a lot of them are relatively similar. So you have like your yearly memberships. When you first sign up for stuff, they'll send you like all these different guides and all these different things that will help you, especially if you're with an EM shift or elective. But I noticed that I shift more towards AAEM because there were more committees and groups to be part of. And it seemed easier to become more involved in them. So I had initially applied to do the wellness committee and then had gotten a position. And then they were looking for more of a membership or a leadership position that I applied to. And unfortunately, someone else had gotten it. But with that being said, there's a pipeline leadership group that kind of stemmed from that. And that's what got me involved in these IMG series. So I don't necessarily know, I guess, the differences of each different type of group, but I would say that AAEM definitely had more leadership roles and it was easier to join committees and stuff.
Yeah, I would say like kind of the same thing. It just kind of depends what you're looking for. I mean, like I mentioned, I got involved in the organizations I did mostly because of my mentors. I forgot to mention that I'm also part of the EMRA ultrasound committee, also because of a graduate from my school who kind of recruited me. So I think it just depends. They all have really great things to offer. I've loved, I only recently this year became a member of AAEM and I've really enjoyed going to, the webinars that they have to offer. And, I think each organization offers different things and it's a different group of people. So, just kind of depends on what you want to get involved in.
So to clarify, if you want to get involved in committees, what does that process look like? I know it's kind of different for each organization, but maybe Jordan, you can kind of talk about what it was like for AAEM, because you mentioned there are so many, kind of subcommittees and groups within the organization.
Yeah, so for AAEM, if you go on their website, you can actually look and see like what committees there are and what they have to offer. Also, when you become a member, there's like, you can join different sections. So you can do like women in emergency medicine, you can do critical care based off of what your interests are. And I had learned through women in emergency medicine about this wellness committee. And so when you go to look up the committees on the website, they'll kind of be like join now, like a little button you can pick. And then a lot of the applications are very simple. It's just kind of filling out like, they'll have like basic questions, not too many of them, but you kind of just write like a short response. It'll be like, why, like, what are your interests for this group? What do you think like you'll add to it? Do you have any experience? Do you have any ideas you would like to add for this group? And then they just reach out to you and it's maybe in a couple of weeks, if that, and they let you know like whether you're on the committee or not. And then depending on what committee it is, you have meetings probably every couple of months. Like it's not very time consuming unless it's planning for something like some type of event. But so far, nothing has been very time consuming for me.
That's really good to know. And relatively low stress, I know, is like a first and second year. I'm like, do I even deserve to be on this committee with attendings and residents? But it really is. I think it's a pretty unique opportunity and a great networking opportunity as well. I see that Zoe has joined us.
Hi, Zoe.
Hi, guys. Sorry, I'm literally in the call room, so if the internet's not good, that's why.
You're good. You're good. All I was going to add to what you were saying too is that I think my biggest fear of joining committees was being afraid that they were going to take up too much of my time. And like when you're depending on, well, actually every year, it's not even what year, but every year your time is consumed up by studying and trying to figure out your way through medicine and what you're going to do next and how to stand out and to build up your CV, and all these different stressors kind of come in. So my biggest fear, I think, was just not having enough time and kind of spreading myself too thin. So I think that's why it took me a little bit to join something. And then I got talking to other people who were part of committees, and they were like, listen, it's really like not as time consuming as you probably think it's going to be. Like, we all have stuff going on. We're all medical students or residents or, whatever. Like, we all have a life that we have to, get to, and we're not going to make you sit here for hours on end for a meeting. Like, it may be a 20-minute meeting here and there. And then if we have to plan anything, it's kind of, we come together for like ideas, and then we kind of do stuff on our own and then share ideas. So if that's like a fear for anyone, I would say get past that, because I've joined my committees and I have plenty of time to do everything.
So since we have you maybe for a few moments, Zoe, if you want to, we started by talking about like what everyone did summer after their first year, if they had any regrets or things that they wish they would have done, or highlights, any of them.
Okay, just let me know if you like can't hear me for some or anything, type in the box. So let's see, summer after my first year, I knew right off the bat that I wanted to do emergency medicine. So I think at the end of my first year, so Ross is trimester, so I don't really have a summer, but towards the end of my first year, I joined the wellness committee of AAEM, and then ended up in the women in emergency medicine section. But I think I don't regret anything that I did. I'm so happy that I joined wellness, because at first I started just kind of dipping into a few meetings. I didn't really do very much. I was more focused on STEP. I was more focused on my semesters. And then as I neared the end of like second year, I took STEP, and now I'm super involved in whatever I can be. So I would say joining these committees, these groups early, and kind of just like dipping your toes in until you're ready to really be a part of it, is definitely beneficial. I now have like this big network of women in emergency medicine and men in emergency medicine, but more often women, that I know would vouch for me and be there for me and guide me. So if you can start making those connections right off the bat, obviously that's the best thing you can do. What else did I do? One thing that I did that's a little bit different than I guess a lot of my fellow students is I did this thing called To Legacy. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. I'm actually going to type it because somebody else might want to do it. Since we're all virtual, it's hard to get, well, I guess people are going back now, but we were all virtual, and it's hard to find, volunteer work or research opportunities. So I found this company where you basically just do video chats with older adults who are lonely or secluded during COVID. And they did like photoreminiscence therapy with them, just things like that. So if you can join like a group like that and get some volunteer work, they also do research. That also I think is really helpful. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I'm trying to get all my thoughts out in these few minutes. But yeah, those are the things that I did. And it's been really great.
That's awesome. I've never heard of that, but definitely I'll promote it to people. I think that, yeah, we were kind of talking about how being virtual, since a lot of programs probably are going to be still virtual in the summer and probably for a few more months at least, it's a unique opportunity to pursue things that you might not. And I guess this has been an unofficial like advertising for AAEM's Wellness Committee and Women in EM. But I think what you were saying too about you do really build a network. I think that being on a committee are doing something with an organization on a national level, you have so many different people, students, residents, etc., from all over the country, and with a lot of different experiences, and it just starts to build your network, and it just continues to grow. And I think that that's especially important in emergency medicine. I know maybe not so much for other specialties, but any other wisdom you would like to impart, Zoe?
I mean, those are my biggest things. It's really what you make of it. If you want to, at the beginning, I would just attend a couple meetings, get my name out there. Even if your name just pops up on a Zoom meeting, at least somebody saw it. And then gradually work your way into it. Just like you said, networking in emergency medicine is huge. Especially, I mean, I'm from Caribbean school, and just, kind of being underdogs, like when you find these people who are going to, when you find these people who are going to speak highly of you, that makes all the difference, even if you're up against, the head honchos in medicine. I don't know. So yeah, just get involved as soon as you can, even if it's just going to one meeting a year, spending an hour with these people. Just get your name out there, be nice to everybody, do what you can. Just be known as a good person. And yeah.
I completely agree with you. And also, me and Zoe have kind of gotten involved in a couple of things. Social media is huge too, especially Twitter. Med Twitter is like the new thing now. We were actually part of like a Twitter chat thing that I didn't even know existed before, but me and Zoe were both part of it, and it was over physician suicide. It was Physician Suicide Month, and it was actually a really cool experience. There was a big group of us all through AAEM. And we all just we had to answer like these 4 general questions, and we all just had to come up with like answers and responses and post it, and any links that we had or just any useful information. And it was a good way to like meet new people and network as well too. So like if you have a Twitter, or if you don't, like I highly recommend getting one, and then just networking that way, because I do follow a lot of like EM physicians on Twitter, and they may recognize your name from your Twitter, and they may be a program director and want to interview you. So
and they follow you back.
Yes, they do. They do. And they like your tweets and all this stuff. Like I retweet all the AAEM stuff, and like they like it. So I'm like, yay, I'm being recognized some way or another. But I definitely recommend doing that. So that's another thing too.
I guess just the only other thing I want to say about getting involved in committees and groups is just do things that you're passionate about and stick with them. Like, I joined the wellness committee right off the bat at the end of my first year, and now I've consistently been with them. So don't join something just because you think it's going to look good. Join something that you're going to stick with over time, and that you can build with these people and grow with these people, because then, same thing, networking.
I will say also on the Twitter comment that I think on literally all of my presentations to like, especially first years, I am like, y'all need to get a Twitter. I like put my Twitter handle up there. I'm like, follow me or don't, whatever, but you should get your own Twitter, because there's also, I feel like a lot of whether it's programs or hospitals or just accounts will post opportunities, and they'll say, like, here's an application for I'll put my Twitter handle in the messages so everyone can. I'm close to 300. Okay, I feel like that's like not like anywhere near like other people I know, but I'm like, I need to hit this milestone.
It's the start or something. I'll put mine in here too. And also it's like, I feel like I downloaded Twitter when I was in like high school and never used it. I'm like, okay, like I used it like for a little bit, and then I kind of got away from it and was more on Facebook and Instagram and all these other things. And then like being part of med school and like starting med school, all of a sudden like Twitter became more of a thing to be part of. And I feel like I use it way more now than I ever thought I would. So I'm also going to put my handle in there.
I'm going to put my handle in too, just to add, like, I am such a huge fan of Twitter, like second what everyone had to say about like connecting with EM physicians, program directors. And also I think it's just a really, like, in the way the world is now, it's such a crazy way to connect with people. I think I told Katie about this, but I had a tweet go like semi-viral, go like 1,000 likes, which for me is a lot. But I tweeted about like rotations and the night before rotations when you have no idea what to expect and no one knows what is going on. And I tweeted about it and I got so many likes just because it's a shared experience of so many med students and physicians and like even like nursing and PA students and all these people in healthcare were applying, being like, oh my gosh, the night before rotations. So add that to your list of things to do over the summer. Get a Twitter and follow me.
And you end up on things like this because you all connect over Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, that's how I saw that Alika was doing that session. And like, that's kind of how I started connecting with her. And I don't know, you find that people are just so willing, and maybe I'm biased and partial because I'm interested in EM, but people that are in EM, that from residents to attendings to PDs, like are really willing to help you. And like for strangers, they're like, okay, this person, I have no idea who they are on Twitter, but like will respond to my message and genuinely respond to my questions. So I don't know, it's a unique sphere, but I think there's benefit to that. Yeah, I'm like,
I
first
definitely
year
agree with that, too.
you have time, just like start building your Twitter platform.
Yeah, seriously. It's funny because someone had added me the other day and then they had messaged me, and they're in the EM community, and they were wondering if I had any like research or case reports or something that I wanted to submit to their journal. And it was just a good way because it's something that I had never heard of before. So I was like, well, I did just do this case report, like maybe I'll try to submit it to them. So it's also another good way to kind of like get yourself out there. And also like kind of side comment here, but like I follow a lot of like EM physicians and attending, well, mostly attendings on Twitter, and they'll post like some of the funniest things. They'll be like, you're an EM when, and then they like say these things. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how I know this is the field for me, because I feel attacked by this comment right here. So it's like, it's nice to know that like some thoughts that you have or like the way you are is like how everyone else in the EM committee or community is too. So you're just like, okay, I feel at home being part of this.
Yeah, and I think even when you get to third and fourth year, you can vouch for the people you potentially find or follow on Twitter. Like that could be a rotation, that could be an EM rotation out of it, or just a network of a program that you might apply to. I think that many fourth years, now I'm kind of on this thread of like, I feel like maybe I won't even, in a year go through VSAS. I'll just like take these little back routes and message everyone on Twitter if I can just rotate at their hospital. But really so many hidden benefits.
Yeah, connections are key.
Unlike not to be the Debbie Downer of the group, but there's also the fact that you can see people who don't like their program on Twitter. So if you're trying to weigh options, you can always find residents from any program you're interested in or attendings and see what kinds of things they post about their program. Mind you, it'll be more of like anonymous posts, but weigh your options through Twitter.
For sure. So do we have any burning questions from our participants as we're kind of nearing the end of our time? You can put it in the chat or message me.
I'll do a follow-up question. Now, since we're talking about Twitter, I'm not very good at social media, but everyone has been telling me that the whole med Twitter thing is the right choice. So is this something I need to get over? Or should I only do it if I'm really drawn to it? Because I don't personally feel drawn to it, but it seems like it's worth it.
Maybe make one, put your interests in your bio. You don't need to be crazy on it. I follow programs and follow attendings and residents and students, but I don't tweet a lot or retweet a lot or anything like that. But maybe just have that out there so that when the time comes, you'll see posts like with somebody's professional shot and they'll be like, hi, I'm, introducing myself. I'm going into EM, or I'm hopefully going into EM, and kind of talk about themselves, and it will just blow up on Twitter. So you don't need to, be involved in it all the time and get thousands and thousands of followers, but maybe just get an account, put your interests in your bio, just have it there so that if you need it.
Yeah. And also if you use the right hashtags, which is also kind of hard to find, but even just like hashtag EM bound or like something EM worthy, I guess. That's how people can kind of find your tweets. And then like I'm also not like huge on Twitter. Like I kind of like scroll through it more than actually be like active in it. But I'll like see programs and add them and kind of just look through their Twitter, and even like events through AAEM. Like I don't necessarily go on their website all the time. And I actually find out a lot of the events through Twitter. Like for the conference in April, that's how I found out about the critical care and anesthesia course that was going to happen. So I use it a lot for just like looking and browsing, but if I'm going to tweet, I try to use like a hashtag or something so that it'll maybe get out there. I've never like gone viral for anything, but it is definitely like a nice way to get yourself out there. Cause like we've said, like if someone sees your name once, they may remember it. And that could be like the reason why you get an interview or a reason why you get a rotation or, whatever you're looking for.
Okay. And just as a technical question, sorry to be spending so much time on this, but it's stressing me out. Would you recommend going off of your personal Twitter? Because like I have one that I just kind of scroll around on, or doing a whole separate like professional Twitter? Like, are there any professionalism concerns with like using your personal Twitter?
So I went off of my personal one, but I had to go back through and delete some things because it was my Twitter from high school and me retweeting things that probably aren't appropriate for the medical field. So like you can use your personal one, you can create one. Some people actually create one with some like unique name, but if you want your name to be out there, I recommend actually using your name. But just go through and filter what you have and delete maybe old tweets that maybe aren't necessarily appropriate professionally, but you can do whatever you want.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I'll recommend med Twitter any day. That's actually how so I first got involved with AAEM because I think their tweet was retweeted or something about they have a medical student ambassador program. And I'll plug this for a quick second. I know that Anantha is not on here anymore, but she is a fourth year who is like really involved, and she was one of the first people to create this Women in EM mentoring series, and she was a med student ambassador as well. But if you are potentially interested, really any first through fourth year med students can apply to be an ambassador for AAEM's yearly scientific assembly. So this year it's in April, I think April 22nd.
April 20, it starts the 23rd, like that Saturday. Yeah, in Baltimore.
Yeah. So you basically just have to fill out like a pretty short application for it. Like, why are you interested in EM? Why do you want to do this, etc. And this is one of the things where I had no idea what I was really doing in my summer. So I was like, I'll just shoot my shot, like whatever. I had no idea really about AAEM. I was like, this sounds cool. And they like pay for your conference registration, and they'll give you like some perks. And you're pretty much like on kind of between like social media and just like administrative team, like helping the conference run. So they exchange your slight labor of like being at the conference, helping take attendance, all of that stuff for getting a free conference out of it. And it really is kind of a cool way to network with other med students and residents and people at the conference. So that was how I saw it, was on Twitter. And I was like, well, this looks interesting. Like I'll apply for this. And I feel like that just kind of burgeoned my involvement with AAEM. I apologize.
So I have a question for you about that maybe other people are kind of thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with the whole ambassador thing. Like I've heard about it, but I've never like fully looked into it. If you're an ambassador, are you able to participate in the like events that are going on, or are you specifically there to kind of like help others out?
No, you can and do whatever basically during the conference. So they do schedule you out for certain, like, okay, you have to be at this session to take attendance, or you have to do this and this and this, but they're super flexible and they want you to like participate in the conference too. So honestly, if that's something you're interested in, you should look into it, because it's a really good gig. They do like compensate you for some of the fees during the conference and pay for things. I know that I was also, I went to the specific like medical students. There's like a morning with like all these different panelists talking about different, like how to prepare for EM residency. So everyone also, just a plug for conferences in general, everyone is granted that that's the only one that I've been to in person, but all of the attendings and residents there are so kind to medical students. They will buy your meals, they will take you out for drinks, like they know that you're like a struggling student, and they're just so kind to you. So if you're like interested at all in going to whatever EM conference, I would say just go for it. You don't have to be there the whole time, just be there a few days. The topics are generally interesting, and normally they have like a specific medical student like panel or talks or whatever. So I would say do that at least once in your career, and plus you can put it on your CV. So are there any other, I don't see anything else in the chat. Anything else y'all want to talk about before we kind of wrap this up that we didn't hit?
I did want to say something that I just didn't get to really harp on earlier, but I'm going to harp on it now. We talk all day about, the amazing things we've been involved with and staying busy and networking and all that stuff, and how this is your last summer, all that sort of thing. That being said, don't forget to take time for yourself, take time for vacation if you can, see your family, see your friends, do all that sort of stuff. If you just want to hang out by the pool, between the summer, between first and second year. I talked to some fourth years before this who did that, and they said it was never brought up on any of their interviews or anything like that. Obviously, I'm not a fourth year, I haven't matched, I'm not a program director, but remember to take time for yourself and see your family and friends during the summer as well. You don't have to be doing something every single day.
I agree. And also during step studying too, don't isolate yourself. I made the mistake of doing that and I was miserable until I like came back around to family and friends and was like, okay, you have to like take a day off and do things. So same thing with the summer too, is don't isolate yourself.
Yeah, I think vacations are really important, especially, I know the summer after my first year was like, a year and a half into COVID, and I had not traveled in that time. And I'm a big traveler, and it made me very sad. So I took like my first vacation in such a long time, and it was great for the mental health, and I'm sure it will not affect me in my future goals. So
maybe we should have like some med student meetups. Jordan, I know you're close to me. I didn't know you were so close to me.
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn.
Jamaica.
Woo!
I'm at 24 hours right now.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that was one good thing about my surgery rotation is they did not make us do 24s. We had 12s, but not 24s.
Q3 every 3 days.
That's how mine was too. It was so I didn't do 24s. I didn't do Q4. I only did 124, but I have never been so delirious in my life. And that's why I don't want to go into a field with like regular 24-hour call.
Oh yeah, I'm not going into surgery.
Yeah, no, I liked it for like a hot second, like the vascular stuff, because it was like kind of trauma related. And I'm like, maybe I like surgery. And then I was like, no. I like EM, but I was talking to a EM attending that I used to work with. And I was like, I'm kind of liking, surgery a little bit. And she's like, well, most people who are in EM also liked their surgery rotation because you got to do the procedures that you would do maybe in the ER. She's like, so that's probably why. And then I got thinking and I'm like, that's totally it. Just being
that's another thing. We'll dip this in here. Get ready for your surgery or EM rotation, because if you get the chance to do something and you can show them,
Oh yeah, all over it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I actually did do that in between first and second year. And I promise I'm not a gunner. I just was at home. Like I was literally like on crutches and had to be sitting in one place the entire time. So I bought a cheap suture kit online and would sit, and like when I was so bored and couldn't watch any more TV, I would sit and suture. So
Oh yeah, and then you stick out. I mean, so just a little background. We just had this trauma. That's why I wasn't here. And he has a huge forehead lack, and I'm gonna go suture it because I practice suturing at home. So it's
there
like,
you go.
It all pays off. And it's so cheap to get one too. Like you can get it off of Amazon. I think it was like maybe $20, if that. And I
Yeah.
have it. And they give me in the OR, they're like, do you need to practice suturing? Yup. So they'll let you practice and then they send you home with more sutures. So there's always
sorry, I
that.
got us off topic a little bit.
Yeah.
Another good thing to do during the summer.
Yeah. Practice your skills if you can.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the unwritten rules, maybe of surgery, but potentially of all rotations, is that like if you can like snag like an extra like whatever to take home to practice, I don't think anyone would look down upon you for that.
No, even like IV supplies, like they know we need practice and like
Really?
depending
I
on
was
what hospital
turning
you're
around,
at.
I have
Yeah.
IV supplies like over there.
Oh yeah, I have my whole drawer over here is like filled with it. I'm like, listen, if you guys don't let me practice on you, I'm taking it and practicing on my friends. So which one do you want?
Man.
So many things to look forward to. Okay, well, if y'all don't have anything else, feel free to drop your email, Twitter handle, whatever, if people have more questions. Just a quick plug for our next session. It's February 15th, and it's all about creating your rank list. So this might not be applicable to any of us on here, but it'll be a lot of good information for when you do get there, because I know a lot of people are already creating their rank list right now, and it's frightening, but it'll come up before you know it.
Sorry,
So-
guys, I have another trauma, so I'm gonna dip. But thank you so much, Katie, and everybody. It was nice to see you. Let me know
for
if I can
joining
help
us.
sometime soon.
Yeah. Good luck with the trauma. I'm jealous.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.